You know, there are moments in life when everything you thought you knew just shatters. When the people who were supposed to love you show their true colors, and when justice comes from the most unexpected place. I'm about to tell you a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it, because what happened to me defied every single expectation I had about family, loyalty, and what I thought I deserved. If you're someone who believes that good things happen to good people, or if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, wondering if you'll ever matter to anyone, then you need to hear this. Because sometimes the universe has a way of balancing the scales in the most dramatic way possible. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door. It walks right in wearing a $1,000 suit and changes your entire life with 4 simple words. I'm not going to lie to you. This story has twists that I still can't believe actually happened to me. There were moments when I thought I was living in some kind of movie, because real life doesn't usually work out this perfectly, right? But sometimes it does. Sometimes the good guys really do win, and sometimes the people who treat you like garbage get exactly what they deserve. So if you love stories about justice, about karma coming full circle, about the underdog finally getting their moment, then you're going to want to stick around for this one. Hit that like button right now, because I promise you, this isn't just another family drama. This is about what happens when someone who's been watching you from the shadows finally steps into the light and changes everything. And I mean everything. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this story will blow your mind. Trust me when I say you won't see this twist coming. Nobody did. Not my stepfamily, not me, and definitely not the people who spent years making me feel like I was worth nothing. But the man who showed up at my graduation ceremony that day, he knew exactly what I was worth, and he was about to make sure everyone else knew it too. Let me take you back to where this all began. I'm Layla, and when I was 8 years old, my world completely fell apart. My mom, the only person who ever truly loved me, died in a car accident. I remember standing at her funeral, holding my dad's hand, thinking that as long as I had him, everything would be okay. How wrong I was. 2 years later, Dad married Claire. She came with her twin children, Brandon and Sophia, who were just a year younger than me. At first I thought maybe this was my chance to have a real family again. Maybe I'd finally have a mom figure and siblings who cared about me. God, I was so naive. Claire made it clear from day one that I was the outsider. While Brandon and Sophia got new bedrooms with fresh paint and furniture, I stayed in my same small room with my mom's old things. Claire said it was important for me to keep my memories, but I knew the truth. She just didn't want to spend money on me. The twins got designer clothes for school, while I wore hand-me-downs from their cousins. They got weekly allowances, while I had to beg for lunch money. And my dad, David, just stood there and let it happen. Every time I tried to talk to him about how Claire treated me, he'd say I was being dramatic or that I needed to give her a chance. After a while, I stopped trying. By the time I was in high school, I had become the family's personal servant. I cooked dinner every night, did the laundry, cleaned the house, all while Brandon and Sophia did nothing but complain about their homework being too hard. When I brought home straight A's, Claire would just nod and ask if the twins needed help with their C- grades. When they managed to scrape by with a B, it was celebration time. The college conversation was the final nail in the coffin. Claire had been saving money for years for Brandon and Sophia's education. Full rides to whatever universities they wanted, no questions asked. When I asked about my college fund, Claire laughed. Actually laughed. She said I was smart enough to figure it out on my own. Maybe apply for scholarships, or they could take out loans, stens. After all, she said, you're not really our responsibility the same way they are. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just the stepchild in this family. I was the unwanted burden they were counting down the days to get rid of. While they planned elaborate 18th birthday parties for the twins, I was working 2 part-time jobs just to save enough money for community college applications. But the worst part wasn't the money, or the chores, or even the constant reminders that I didn't belong. The worst part was watching my dad, The one person who was supposed to protect me, just stand by and let it happen. He had chosen his new family, and I wasn't part of it. Senior year was supposed to be exciting, but for me it felt like a countdown to abandonment. While Claire planned elaborate graduation parties for Brandon and Sophia, complete with custom decorations and catered food, she forgot to even order me a cap and gown. I had to remind her 3 times before she finally, reluctantly, placed the order. What made it worse was that I had actually achieved something incredible that year. I had earned valedictorian. Me, the unwanted stepchild, had the highest GPA in my entire graduating class. When I told Claire, she barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, honey," she said, then immediately turned to Brandon to ask about his baseball game. David gave me a pat on the shoulder and said he was proud, but I could tell his heart wasn't in it. The twins were graduating too, but barely. Brandon had failed 2 classes and had to take summer school just to walk across the stage. Sophia spent more time on social media than studying and finished with a 2.1 GPA. But somehow they were the ones getting celebrated. Claire booked them spa days, shopping trips, and posted constantly about her babies graduating. I wasn't mentioned in a single post. The breaking point came 3 weeks before graduation. I had been secretly applying to universities all year, working extra shifts at both my jobs to pay the application fees. When I got my acceptance letter to the state university with a partial scholarship, I was so excited I could barely contain myself. This was my ticket out, my chance to finally build a life where I mattered. I left the letter on the kitchen counter for just 10 minutes while I showered. When I came back down, it was gone. I found it in the trash, ripped into pieces. Claire was standing there with her arms crossed, looking satisfied with herself. "You're being ridiculous," she said when I confronted her. "You can't afford university. You should be realistic and look into community college or getting a job. Brandon and Sophia need to focus on their futures without you stirring up drama with these fantasy plans." That night I cried harder than I had since my mom died. I felt completely alone in the world. Even when I achieved something incredible, something that should have made any parent proud, I was still treated like I was worthless. Like I was asking for too much by simply wanting to be acknowledged. But something inside me refused to break. Maybe it was my mom's spirit watching over me. Or maybe it was pure stubbornness, but I decided that graduation day would be my moment. They could ignore me, dismiss me, and tear up my letters, but they couldn't take away what I had earned. I was going to walk across that stage as valedictorian, give my speech, and show everyone what Layla could accomplish. I had no idea that someone very important would be watching me that day. Someone who had been waiting years for exactly that moment. Graduation day arrived, and my family showed up exactly as I expected them to. 20 minutes late, Claire complaining loudly about the uncomfortable bleachers, David checking his work emails, and the twins on their phones posting selfies. They missed my entire valedictorian speech about overcoming adversity and finding strength in solitude. I looked out into the audience as I spoke those words, and that's when I saw him. There was a distinguished older man sitting in the back row, probably in his 60s, wearing an expensive suit that stood out among the casual parent attire. But it wasn't his clothes that caught my attention. It was the way he was watching me. While everyone else was distracted or talking, he was completely focused on every word I said. When our eyes met, he smiled and nodded, as if he was proud of me. It was such a small gesture, but it meant everything to a girl who hadn't felt that kind of recognition in years. After the ceremony, I wanted to find him, to thank him for actually listening, but Claire grabbed my arm before I could move. "We have dinner reservations," she snapped. "We can't be late because of your little speech." The dinner was at Romano's, the fanciest Italian restaurant in town. For a moment, I thought maybe they were finally celebrating my achievement. But as soon as we sat down, Claire made it clear this was about Brandon and Sophia graduating despite their challenges. As she put it, she ordered champagne for the table and made a toast to her children's bright futures. I sat there picking at my pasta, feeling invisible once again. when the strangest thing happened. The same man from the graduation ceremony walked into the restaurant. He was alone, but he carried himself like someone important. He spoke quietly to the hostess, who immediately became very attentive and led him to a table across the room. Claire noticed him too and started whispering to David about how distinguished he looked, wondering if he was someone famous. She was always impressed by wealth and status. But then something incredible happened. The man stood up, walked directly to our table, and looked straight at me. "Excuse me," he said in a voice that commanded attention. "I hope I'm not interrupting your celebration, but I was wondering if I could have a word with Layla." The entire table went silent. Claire's mouth actually fell open. Claire immediately launched into her fake sweet voice, the one she used when she wanted to impress people. "Oh, of course. Are you here to congratulate all our graduates? Brandon and Sophia both worked so hard this year." She gestured proudly at the twins, who suddenly sat up straighter, thinking they were about to meet someone important. But the man didn't even glance at them. His eyes stayed fixed on me. "Actually, I'm here specifically for Layla. My name is Vincent Sterling, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet you properly." Sterling. That name hit me like a lightning bolt. My mother's maiden name was Sterling. I had seen it on her old documents that David kept in a box in the attic. My heart started racing as puzzle pieces began clicking into place. Vincent smiled at my recognition and continued, "Layla, I'm your grandfather. Your mother, Rebecca, was my daughter, and I've been watching over you from a distance since she passed away." The restaurant seemed to spin around me. Claire's face went from confusion to shock to something that looked like pure terror. David dropped his fork, and the twins just stared with their mouths open. "I know this is overwhelming," Vincent said gently, "but I need you to know that your mother never wanted us to be estranged. That was my mistake, my pride, and I've regretted it every day since her accident. I've been monitoring your progress through school, and when I learned you were valedictorian, I knew I had to be there." Then he turned to address the table, and his voice became ice cold. "I also know exactly how this family has been treating my granddaughter. The destroyed college letters, the ignored achievements, the fact that she's been working 2 jobs just to survive while you lavish everything on your biological children." Claire's face went white. "How could you possibly know?" "Because I've been watching," Vincent said simply. "And it ends tonight. Layla, you're coming home with me. Your real home, where you belong. And you," he looked directly at Claire, "will never disrespect a Sterling again." That's when he dropped the bombshell that would change everything, especially not the sole heir to Sterling Industries. The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling Industries. I had heard that name before, seen it on billboards and in business magazines, at the library. It was one of the biggest corporations in the state, worth billions, and apparently, it all belonged to me. Vincent reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. "These are the legal documents, Layla. Everything has been prepared for years, waiting for your 18th birthday. The company, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolios, it's all yours. You are the only Sterling heir, and you deserve to carry our family name with pride." Claire looked like she was about to faint. Her hands were shaking as she grabbed David's arm. "This can't be real. This is some kind of joke." But Vincent wasn't finished. He turned to David with a look that could freeze hell over. "Your construction business, David. Did you ever wonder how you got those major contracts that saved you from bankruptcy 5 years ago? Or who provided the anonymous investors that kept you afloat?" David's face went ashen. That was you? Every single dollar. I've been supporting this family financially for years, hoping you would treat my granddaughter with the love and respect she deserved. Instead, you allowed your wife to abuse her while spending my money on your biological children." Vincent stood up, his presence commanding the entire restaurant's attention. "As of tomorrow morning, every business contract, every investment, every loan I've provided to your family will be terminated. Your house mortgage, which I own through Sterling Financial, is being called in immediately." The twins looked terrified now, finally understanding that their comfortable life was crumbling around them. Claire started crying. actually crying as she realized what she had lost. But the most incredible part was what Vincent said next. Layla, pack your things tonight. You're moving into the Sterling estate, and on Monday, we're enrolling you at Harvard. Full scholarship, of course, since you'll technically be paying your own tuition. I looked around the table at the people who had made my life miserable for nearly a decade. They had treated me like I was worthless, like I didn't deserve basic human dignity. And now they were learning that I was worth more than they could ever imagine. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door. Sometimes it walks in wearing a $1,000 suit and changes your entire world with 4 simple words. You deserve our name. That was 3 years ago, and I'm writing this from my dorm room at Harvard, where I'm studying business management to eventually take over Sterling Industries. Vincent and I have built the most incredible relationship. He's taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and believing in each other's potential. As for my former stepfamily, well, let's just say they learned some valuable lessons about treating people with kindness. David had to sell the house and move into a small apartment. He got a job working construction again, this time as a regular employee instead of an owner. Claire had to give up her luxury lifestyle and actually get a job for the first time in years. She works at a department store now, which I think has given her some perspective on what real work feels like. Brandon and Sophia, they both ended up at community college, working part-time jobs to pay their own way. Funny how quickly they learned responsibility when they had to. I actually ran into Sophia at a coffee shop last month. She apologized for how they treated me and said she understood now what it felt like to struggle. I forgave her because holding on to anger would only hurt me. Vincent always tells me that the best revenge is living well, and he's absolutely right. I went from being the unwanted stepchild to being a Sterling, with a grandfather who loves me unconditionally and a future brighter than I ever dared to dream. If this story taught you anything, let it be this: never give up on yourself, even when everyone else has. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Sometimes the people who are meant to love you most are still out there, waiting to find you. Can you believe that twist? Sometimes karma doesn't just knock, it kicks down the door. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Comment below. Have you ever experienced karma like this? I read every comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.